Welcome to the Powell-Liberty Historical Society April 2022 program. We're happy to say that this is expected to be our last pre-recorded program. Starting in May, we'll be back to person, one-on-one together. But this one is pre-recorded today to be shown or to be streamed on April 18th, which is a week later than our usual program. But we had some conflicts. Today, though, with us is Tim Kreps, retired teacher and living history reenactor. He's going to introduce us to Henri, a French Voyageur fur trader. Tim will take us into his fur trade encampment, where you'll see Indian artifacts and furs traded for the white man's conveniences. You might even hear how loud a flintlock rifle can be. Tim has done this and similar living history programs to groups from 3rd grade to adults, including teacher in-service education, where they were able to share ideas on how to make social studies come alive. Some of Tim's honors in his 33-year teaching career are Ohio Council of Social Studies High School Teacher of the Year Sylvania Schools, awarded Who's Who Among American Teachers, Masters of Education degree, invited participant in the Grand Rapids Apple Butter Festival, and a member of the Ohio Flint Rock and Rendezvous Association. An accomplished teacher and a passionate advocate for keeping history alive indeed. We welcome Tim Kreps and Henri.
What is this? People in my camp. People that are dressed so strangely. Where is your buckskin pantaloons? Where is your calico blouse? They look so different than moi. Well, I am here to tell you about the fur trade. The French that were in this area and all of the stories that go with that. Before I begin, you saw me playing and heard me playing the Jew's harp. Well, this is sometimes called a mouth harp, and is played with the volume of air that is in your mouth and throat. Particularly swallow my Adam's apple on that one. But it is a fun instrument. The French would say to me, "Jouez, Henri, jouez," which means to play. Well, my mortal enemy, the British, they got a hold of this and they butchered the word jouer. And that's how it became known as a Jew's harp. They could not pronounce the word jouer. But it is fun to play around the campfire, passing the time. It is a great tool to have. Well, you see my outfit that is before you. It is very colorful. As a Havernot, I am not a pork eater. A pork eater voyageur is only the person that paddles the big canoes across the Great Lakes, the freight canoes. I am a Havernot. That's why I have the ostrich feather in my top hat. I am not a pork eater. I am dressed this way to gather attention. All the necklaces, all the things that I have are trying to make friends with the natives. I have moccasins on. I have beads on. My belt doesn't have a buckle. I am trying to befriend and be able to get to know the natives and them to know me. I have, I don't know if you can see here, my scalp locks from my gaiters. These are to show that I too can take a scalp. I can be against my common enemy, my friends the Indians, to their enemy, and I can be like them. I have a variety of necklaces on here. Some are the red heart, some are the yellow heart. I have some beaver teeth and some horse teeth on this one. These trade beads come from Africa. This is the most common bead that the voyageurs had, the cross trails. You can see maybe the small little cross on the inside here. All of these are trade worthy to be able to trade to the natives. I have tools on me too. If I don't have my knives handy, I have a throwing knife handy here for food or enemy. I have a side knife here. Taking a scalp with this is very easy. It's not a traditional English knife. This is an antler, a moose antler, and a blade, and this is rawhide that was wetted and then sucked down, sewn, and as it dries, it sucks in and holds everything together. This is what you would use to take a scalp. Maybe you could come up here just a second. And if I was to take a scalp, you take the crown, and then you do a little circle, and the circle is only about like this. But by having circumvented all the skin, you can then pop off the scalp, and it does make a popping sound. Thank you. Then you could use those scalps to show your prowess, or to actually later on, after the fur trade, they were used to trade for the same things that furs were traded for. There was the hair buyer, Hamilton the hair buyer up in Detroit during the War of 1812 that bought scalps, and then the natives got all the same things that they did for beads, but now it was for scalps. The guns, the ammunition, knives, blankets, needles, kettles, all of those types of things. Before all of those things were out and about for trade, you had the natives living in this land called the prehistoric Indians. Now these natives also traded. I have a few of their trade items here. They traded conch shells. They traded mica. This is, mica is used even today in your fireplaces. Some of the, quote, glass doors are made from mica because they will not crack, and you can still see through these thin sheets and see through to see the fire. Prehistoric natives used large sheets. I'm talking sheets this big in some of their graves. Mounds have been discovered. Mound City Group near Chillicothe in Ohio, where it was called the mica grave. All these big sheets were laid around the remains of the natives that were buried. The large megadon, I think it's called, shark, prehistoric shark. It's a tooth. They would trade shark's teeth. They could be used for tools, or just because they thought they were something precious to be able to have. The mouth of this shark, it's 10 feet tall, 8 feet tall, open, and 12 feet wide. My wingspan is 6 feet. I'm about 6 feet tall, so twice this. So I could actually stand inside of this great white shark, prehistoric great white shark. But those were traded also. And last but not least that was traded was flint. Flint was used, they eventually realized that if you sometimes could even get a fire started, even back in prehistoric times, if it hit something else that was that had iron in it, the spark would happen. That was all by circumstance. It wasn't by design at that time. Today, flint is still used, and it's interesting that this shape is kind of in the shape of Ohio. This is a tumbled piece of flint, and it is very smooth and very colorful. I don't know how close I can get here to show you, but this is Ohio's official gemstone, flint, Ohio flint. found in Flint Ridge, and all of these things, flint from Ohio, Flint Ridge has been found out west, where another item to be traded, obsidian. This is an obsidian knife on an antler from Volcano. This was used for trade. The Ohio flint has been found up in Michigan, where copper was traded. These are armbands like I have on here. Flint has been found down where the conch shell is, where the shark's teeth is, all over the trade patterns. Now at that time, how did they get tools to be able to live and survive, to have food, clothing, and shelter? Well, there were these large animals roaming around, these large mastodons and big animals. How do you kill a big animal? You force it off of a cliff, or you dig a big pit and force it into the pit. And once you do that, then you can make another tool. This is a stone, and this is the animal skin that has been scraped clean of all of the blood and guts on the inside and all of the fur on the outside. And while it is wet, shaped around this stone, taking thinner pieces also here, and it all sucks down on this and tightens it up, and you cannot move that off of there. But now you have a club to be able to help bring dinner home to the table and have food, and not just food, but also have a sleeping mat, a robe to keep warm, all of those types of things. Well, eventually trees began to grow and other tools were used. This is a killing club. If a rabbit would be going by, do that. Is also into the side of the head, you're going to be able to kill a man, an enemy. Eventually, using stone and wood and rawhide, you could make a crude axe. This could damage someone. It could chop on wood. It would be very, very useful. Take a piece of flint and knap it. Knapping is the process of getting it thin and then shaping and getting it sharp. The last process in that, the final knapping, is done with an antler, and it is pushing down on the edges to get it very sharp. This is a moose leg bone here, and that is a nice tool to use. It is a little bit bigger than this tool, which is very sharp. This is a white-tailed deer leg bone. This is flint, very sharp. But the problem with this tool, if I'm working and I drop it and it hits a stone, it's going to shatter, crack apart. And all the work that I put into this is going to be to no avail. And so having trade objects from the traders that would come to bring knives and sharp tools so that didn't happen would be very helpful. Here's the last couple of things the natives would use out of, this is a leg bone of a deer, and it's a knife. This is a leg bone of a deer, and then they used the jaw to make the handle, and the sinew. These are tendons. You put them in your mouth and get them wet, draw it around, and then that sucks down on that and holds it. Does not taste very well, very good at all. It's terrible. Trust me, I know. This is the time of the year, spring. Does my audience have any ideas what that might be used for? Only used in the spring. Yeah. Tap this into a tree, and you're going to get, when the syrup runs, you're going to get syrup. Now, the natives did not put syrups on flapjacks. They used the syrup They would boil it down, and you have to boil it a lot. I've done it. And they would throw it out onto the snow, and that would create some hard sugar candy, maple candy. Does anybody know what this is? This is a shoulder blade. This is an animal's shoulder blade. It's a tool. It can be used for digging. It can be used for hacking. It can be used to scoop coals out of a fire and take to another camp. Put a pole on it and it could be a paddle. All of those things, very useful tool. What is the steel part of this called? It is a blade. It didn't come out of thin air. It came by using the blade, the shoulder blade. For all of those things, this is the blade. That's the transition. Talk about transitions. You see that I have a gorget hanging here for decoration. Gorgets did at one time serve a useful purpose. Gorgets were in the necks of the Knights of the Round Table's armor. This protected this weak spot in your neck. The natives, and this is so amazing to me, the natives a whole ocean away were using gorgets to do the same thing. This is a stone gorget that was put around the neck to help a person survive. Isn't it interesting? Survival in an area that these white men knew nothing about, and these natives knew nothing about these people, but they still had something to protect themselves until gunpowder, because this did not protect the body from a bullet. Why is it still worn? It's decoration. It shows rank and authority. Many of the colonels and the captains in armies that came after these were dropped down like this would wear these. Chiefs would have 3. I've seen sketches of 3 big gorgets on a chief's chest. So they were a rank and showed authority and showed leadership. Maybe some of you know about the men called Lewis and Clark. Both of those captains in the Corps of Discovery had gorgets that they hung on their chest because they were the captains of that Corps of Discovery. One of the guesses for the bigger tool that I had that was a tap for a maple tree was whistle. In fact, you can out of bone make whistle. These are turkey bones, and if you try to call in a turkey to be able to have a nice meal. During a battle, this bone is cut in the form of a whistle. That higher pitch at the end is the sound of a raptor, like an eagle, that is communicating to their fellow attackers what to do and how to proceed and how to fall back. That's the same type of thing that is used, that we know of. You hear in battles a drum that is used. In native circles, the drum was used for ceremonial purposes of dancing. This is rawhide. It is same procedure that I mentioned before. Hair scraped off, guts scraped off, put it in water, pull it around a hoop, use rawhide strands to pull these pieces all together. That's not even tied. That is just wrapped, and it dries and it holds. And round, the natives believed that this represented Mother Earth, and it was high ceremony to use a drum. Later on, continental armies and other armies used a drum like the whistle I was telling you about as a command for advance, fall back, all of those types of things. This is a trap. It's made of wood and sinew holding these vines together. But if you see that an animal is going to a stream and creating a path to go get water, you know that I could put a trap in that path and maybe get that animal. So you dig a hole in that path, you put the trap in the path, cover it with leaves, take a stake and make sure that the trap does not go anyplace. And an animal comes along and their leg goes right down into it, and you can see how it has caught my hand. Now I'm smarter than the average bear, and I can pull my hand out. But an animal that gets caught like that, first thing he's going to do is jerk it and get caught. Then you have to be able to go around to the check your trap line and take one of your killing tools and dispatch the animal so that you are able to bring home the food, clothing, and shelter that you need. Well, there are other things that the natives would use before trade times. They take bark and bend it a certain way and create a bark carrier, or you might even call it a bark bucket, but not for water. You could use the rawhide and shape it in such a way and then put a stopper in it, and this could hold porcupine quills for needlework, beads, lead balls. All of those types of things could be held in this. This is an early wallet. It's rawhide that's folded in such a way that you can put your needles in there. Now, needles would be bone needles, understand. And they would use awls to be able to, and mostly out of bone at that time, you have to pre-punch a hole. This sewn pouch here didn't get done by putting a needle in it and drawing it out. You have to pre-punch every hole and then take the sinew and on a bone needle, if it's before trade time, and put it down through that hole and draw it down through, and that works wonderful for that type of thing. Well, I mentioned about the voyageurs at the beginning that I'm a Havernaut and there are pork eaters. What I should tell you is all of this gear that is traded, the trade items that are brought, blankets and shirts and all of these trade items, they are in fact brought over in these huge freight canoes. Now, a freight canoe is as big as, I suppose the best way to look at a freight canoe, 40 feet is hard to imagine, but if you think of those yellow buses that you all use to go to school and have seen on the roads, that's about a 40-foot yellow school bus would be the size of a freight canoe. Now, that freight canoe is made of birch bark. And that birch bark canoe, being that long, only weighs 300 pounds. But it will hold 10,000 pounds of trade objects and men and materials. That is amazing. 4 men would get out of the canoe as it comes to the beach, not let it run up on the beach to wear out the birch bark, pick it up, carry it, turn it over, and create a tarp and a living situation for themselves. Now, personally, I do not live in those kind of conditions. I said I'm not a pork eater. I am a havernut. I canoe in the smaller lakes and the streams and rivers in about a 24-foot canoe. And there's only about 6 of us that are doing that. And we trade with the natives. We work to get all of these things. I'm especially welcome because of my nose ring. They see that I have gone through pain to have my nose pierced and to have this nose ring in, and I have an ear cuff in. So all of these things are helping me to befriend the natives and to make the best trades that I can possibly make. One of the times when I was out with my friend Jean-Claude, we were in this beautiful valley, and we were getting a drink out of the stream. And as I was getting this drink out of the stream, my friend Jean-Claude, he says, "Henri, stand up and do not look afraid." I turned to him and said, "Well, what do you mean, Henri?" And out of my corner of my eye, I glimpsed over on the top of the hill that leads down into this valley, six natives on horseback, enemy natives. And I said to him, "Jean-Claude, we do not have our rifles, but I have my killing club and I have my knife, and we will go down fighting like men." And he said the strangest words to my ears. He said, "Put that away. Put that away." Oh, I followed his instructions. He's always been good in his instructions before. So I put it away. He says, "Stand there. Stand statue still. Don't move. Don't look afraid." I didn't have time to react. They are riding down on us now. He said, "Do not look afraid." So I gritted my teeth, I squinted, and I looked at him, and don't you know what inside I'm thinking though? You're gonna die! Oh, you're gonna die! But I didn't. I still gritted my teeth, and I looked at him, and one man comes by on his horse and knocks off my top hat. And the other man came by this way on a horse, this Indian, and hits me on the back so hard I almost fall into the stream. And then they're gone. They're riding up the hill on the other side of the valley. I took a deep breath, and I turned to Jean-Claude and I said, "How is it, Jean-Claude, that you and I are standing here yet alive?" And he said, "I thought that's what they would do." I said, "You thought that's what they would do?" "I thought that's what they would do," he said. "They counted coup on us. And they are now going back to their camp to celebrate." Counting coup can be done in a variety of ways. It could be with a coup stick, like this. Some coup sticks are 6, 7 feet tall. It could be, as that native did to me, just hit me on the back. Touching your enemy gained more prestige than killing your enemy, because you came back to your village to tell the story. And when they got back to the village, they would celebrate. They would dance with their noise. This is a gourd, and this is a white-tailed deer leg with more toes down here to create the rattle. And so they would celebrate and dance. And some of those dancers might have very, very powerful, to them, very powerful. This is a snapping turtle, and it's all been sewn up. Well, it was all wet after the legs were taken off, and stones or beads were put in there, and so this is very high medicine to use in that dancing. Some of the native tribes, most have a story of origin that revolves around mother turtle Mother Turtle being so important, Grandmother Turtle, to be able to, well, I should start at the beginning. Earth was nothing but water. Water everywhere. And one of the animals got the idea that they should swim down as long as it would take and bring up earth to start land. Well, there were all kinds of animals around. The little ducks, they came up first, they, we can do this. And they're just paddling around, and they just went down, and they were only gone for count of 3 and then back up. And Grandmother Turtle swam and said, they weren't successful. Let me go. I think I can do this. Oh no, Grandmother Turtle, you are too old. No, this is a job for somebody else. So she swims back to the outer part of the circle, and up comes another animal. This time it's an otter. And the otter is playful, and he's jumping around. He says, well, you know, I can swim pretty deep, and I can do this. And so he takes a dive and goes down, and he's gone a little bit longer, but he comes back with nothing. Grandmother Turtle swims up again. Says, I really think I can do this. No, Grandmother Turtle, you're too old. So she swims back to the edge, and here comes Beaver. Now, Beaver's got that big tail. I'm back in the back of my camp here. You see a beaver with that tail, that big tail, and those big webbed feet could carry this animal down to the bottom. And he took 3 deep breaths and dove down, and he was gone a long time. But he came up and said, I thought I could do that, but I'm sorry, I couldn't. And here comes Grandma Turtle. She says, you've all tried. Now I think it is my turn. And she takes 3 much larger breaths than the beaver did, fills her lungs, and dives down, 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 down. And just as she was about to pass out, she reached out her claw and grabbed earth and came up to the surface. Earth was put on her back, and the world formed from that. That is one creation story according to one tradition. There are many variances of that in the native traditions of different tribes, but some still say that is why the snapping turtle has so many cracks in its shell, because it bore the weight of earth. That's a wonderful story to be thinking about when you see a turtle, and be reminded about other cultures and what they do. Well, trade was so important. We had lots of animals to trade. This is a deer skull. This is a deer hide. This happens to be a deer hide it's tanned, and it has the hair on one side and then the leather on the other side that you can see here. Now this makes a great sleeping mat. You can put it over your shoulders to keep warm. That's very good. If I was walking into a camp and wanted to trade, I would be looking for somebody to make me maybe a leather shirt. Let's say that let's say that you're the native woman that's going to be there, and let's say that your brother just brought you a deer, and it's laying there in front of your wujua. So what are you going to do to process that deer? First of all, if it's after trade time, you're going to be able to use tools that are traded for. You can use maybe a tomahawk for a scraper, and you're going to scrape off all the hair off of one side, and then you're going to scrape off all the blood and guts off the other side. And after you're done scraping, you're going to take that hide and put it on the ground. You're going to take something sharp and dig in here and get all the brains out. Boil those brains with some water. Drizzle those brains in water on the hide. And then you're going to take your moccasins off and you're going to squish the brains all up through. It comes up between your toes and it feels so good. And get it all soaked up with all the brains. And then you have to do something else. You have to find out, now if you were the native doing this, do you have teeth that click when you do that? That they're apart from you? Yeah. So you have all your teeth in your mouth. That's important because the native has to do this then. Chew, chew, chew. Chew, chew, chew. Around the whole edge to break down that fibrous edge. Once they do that, they go out into the woods and they find a tree. And they'll say that this is a stump. They'll put the hide over the tree and they'll work it back and forth over that stump to get all the fibers broken down. Once they've done all that, they're able to have a shirt to be able to sell. Trade. Okay, as our native maiden, could you stand up and come up here? And let's say that you just did all that work on this, and I need to trade for it because I want to have a shirt made. Let's have, I think your brother would love to have this instead of using lead and ammunition, gunpowder, to dispatch animals. He would love this. And maybe for you, you would love having some vermilion. This is ground ochre. And this would be, what you would do is put it down the part of your hair and across your forehead just a little bit. And that would make you the most beautiful maiden in the village. And yes, that's for sure. You get that. And you know, maybe a bead to go along with that. And a trade mirror so you can see what you look like when you're doing that. And all of this is given to you, and I get this.
You get that. Okay.
Now, what did all of those things cost you? A lot of work and time.
Work and time.
Brains coming up between your toes. It cost you one. Some people call this a hide. If I told you it was from a male deer, what's a male deer called?
Buck.
A buck. So it cost you one. Say it to me, everybody. One buck. But we kind of dropped the skin, and we just say it costs $1. All of those things you have folded up in your wallets and purses, how many bucks do you have to trade for things today? All came from back in the early 1600s even, that terminology. Well, thank you for being our maiden.
Absolutely.
Now, we talk about trade. What's important to know, that's important to have food, clothing, and shelter, yes. But the beaver is the most important animal for trading. This is a small beaver. You see the big beavers behind me. By the way, these 4 lines on this blanket, this is called a 4-point blanket. That's the price tag. That means, since there are 4 large lines, it would take 4 large beaver to trade for this blanket. If it was a 3.5 point, 3 large, 1 half, it would take 3 of those and 1 of these. It's a small beaver. Beaver, this is a beaver skull. You need to hear this little story. Have you ever heard the term busy as a beaver?
Yes.
Well, that's because beavers have to be busy. These teeth that are chisel sharp, they keep growing. And if this beaver doesn't keep chawing on wood, taking down trees and eating wood its entire life, every night it goes out, it's a nocturnal animal, doing that, then these teeth are going to go this way and right up into its skull, and it's going to be floating dead in the water. This, I think, is a great lesson for all of us. Busy as a beaver? We all need to be busy as a beaver. Don't give up. Keep chawing away at whatever it is that we're working on, one little bite at a time, so that we don't end up dead in the water. Keep working. Keep working all the time. Little bit at a time does the trick. My top hat is made from wool. This top hat was made from beaver. This was the reason for the fur trade. Both English and French wanted this hat. Men had to have this hat. Now, women had other things made of beaver, the furs and things, but nothing like the draw and the need, they felt need for this beaver hat. This is what war was fought for. At first, it was just a matter of trading to help. The natives thought, well, that'll help my life. Did they really need these conveniences, or did they want them? They wanted them, and they got pulled into their culture to depend on these conveniences so much that they had to keep trading. This hat in the French and Indian War that was fought between England and their Indian allies and the French and their Indian allies, people read the history, but they don't connect the dots sometimes. People died so that people in Europe could have a fur hat, a beaver felt hat. Mothers and fathers, grandpapas and grandmamas, little babies died for this hat. Now it's still happening in your world today over other resources. People still die. Sad story, but it's true. One of the best things to trade for that the natives wanted is a rifle. This is a flintlock rifle. It is made from curly maple, and it is rifled. That means that inside there's a bit of a screw thread that takes the ball and spins it as it comes out, making it much more accurate than a musket, which is a smooth bore, and a ball just comes out. It doesn't bounce around in there, but I'm going to tell you it's like bouncing around because it's not as accurate. The earlier guns were not this tall. They started out down in here. Why? Because beavers were stacked to the top of the gun. Well, a smart gun maker and a smart trader would want taller and taller guns, get more beavers. So a gun for a stack of beaver pelts. The rifle, the procedure to build a rifle, you have three major components. You have the wood, you have the barrel here, and you have the stock. And when you put them all together, you have everything you need: lock, stock, and barrel. The lead that is used inside this gun for the bullets is useful also. This is one lead round ball that has been made into a dice. Indians played games, and so did early white men. And if they needed to keep score, they'd take a round lead ball, and this looks like a nail, but this is your first lead pencil. Indians played games just to help increase their skill level. They would use things like this. These are knuckles of the deer toe, and this is part of the deer leg. And they would try hand-eye coordination. Not very good here today. Let me try one more time. Oh, wow. That doesn't happen very often. Got 4 of them. I have done 5. I have done 5. In fact, one time I did 5, and my audience, they saw me stop and look at it, and they were 5th graders, and they knew that something special had happened because it had. But this is pretty special to show you today that it can be done. We'll give you an opportunity to try that afterwards. The lead ball is made from a chunk of lead. Colin, come on up here. Okay, have you ever heard the term, hurry up, get over here, get the lead out? Mm-hmm. Now you know why they say that. Kind of heavy.
Pretty heavy.
And if you had to run around with lead in your shooting pouch all day, you'd want the lead out, for sure. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. The gun is called a flintlock because the jaw holds flint. This is the set trigger. This is the half cock. I put the powder in here after putting powder down the barrel. What if I see a deer? Drop it down, go to shoot. Nothing happens. Why? Because I went off half cocked. The gun will not fire. But we will show you how all of this fits together. I'll do that right now. Would you hold that, please? Flint, to show you how flint works before I get the gun loaded. This is steel, this is flint, just like in the gun, flint and steel, and you see sparks coming. The spark drops into the pan, which holds a little bit of powder, and starts the gun, makes it go boom. The same thing can be accomplished without a boom. Go find a mouse nest. In this case, I've taken some dried rope and untwizzled it. By the way, that's how they made rope. They would take the rope and twizzle it up and make rope out of the same natural material. I will take charred cloth, many times just called char cloth. You do make char cloth by getting a tin, has a little hole in the top, put it in a fire. It'll start smoking. That smoke will catch on fire like a candle. When it goes down, you kick this out of the fire, you put a stick in that to keep air from getting in, and then you have not burnt up, but charred pieces of cloth. You use those pieces of charred cloth in your nesting material. And I'm going to add a little bit of lint from my belly button. That catches a spark very well. And in a moment, we will step outside and show you how to light that. Now, back to loading the rifle. First thing I do, now all this is safe to be done right here. We'll go outside to fire it. I find my measuring dangling here someplace. Here it is. I take this old piano key or a fiddle turner. Anything like that would work, or you make one yourself. And measure out the powder. Make sure that you put your stopper back in, because if a spark falls in here, that's a bomb going off on your hip. Pour this powder first, then brother ball. I would be chewing on a rag, and that's what I need. Would you go get me some paper towel real quick? I'd be chewing on this rag, getting it wet with spit. You put the rag over the top, and then you get your ball out. Keep my lead ball in here. Get your ball out and put it on top of that. Now we're not going to be putting a lead ball in there. We're going to pretend that this is the patch that I've been chewing on. Put it over, and this is the ball that goes on top. I take the starter out. I push this down. A piece of tissue won't push like a lead ball, so I'll feed it in there. Then take my patch knife, and cut the extra off. Put it back in my mouth to keep it wet. I'm going to get rid of that though. Then we take the starter, make sure it's flat down, push down, then you start it down. Because if you don't, you could break your ramrod off. And if you break your ramrod off, all you have is a 10-pound club. So you ram it home, another term that comes from this gun. Ram it home. Make sure you take your ramrod out. Some people fire their ramrods from the gun. It can kill somebody. Simon Kenton was able to kill an Indian who was chasing him, and he did all what I'm doing on the run, put his ramrod down instead of putting a ball in, turned around and fired his ramrod through the Indian that was about to tomahawk him in the back. He was being chased. So that is down. The next thing we're going to do is put it on half cock, open up this pan, pour some peppery kind of powder. It's called priming powder. It's smaller than the powder that went down the gun. And then the spark will ignite that powder and send the quote bullet, that's a fake bullet, on its way. Well, we'll take a moment right now to go outside and set up to show you how lighting the fire, and we'll end with a bang with the flintlock being fired. See you in just a minute. Well, welcome back to the Great Outdoors. We are here with the tools that I showed you inside. A piece of steel, a piece of flint to create sparks, and char cloth to catch it, and tinder to be able to have flame. Let us hope that this works.
Good work.
Voila! Of course, I would have my wood and my kindling all prepared, so I could just tuck that ball of fire down underneath. If I had a little stub of a candle, I might light that first to make sure that my fire would go out before I get it lit. The candle would be very helpful in making sure that I can light my fire. Now remember, we've done everything that we need to do with the rifle, but we have not put the charge into the pan, the priming powder. So we put it back on half cock. I reach into my pouch. Get the priming powder. Level it out. There is a hole in the back of the barrel, and it should make a connection. Now if I pulled this back and it just had fire here but didn't go off, this is called the pan. It would be all show and no go, or a flash in the pan, all show and no go. Let us hope that we've made the connection and that we can fire our pretend bullet today. Now to make this safe, I'm going to turn away like this, because this, when it goes off, it has a shower of sparks that will go that way. Now we'll pretend that there's something in the tree. No food on the table. We have food on the table.
Excellent.
We rouse the natives at the same time.
Very good.
Let us go back inside and see if there are some questions or other comments that we need to make. Well, welcome back. We are back to the inside venue here, and have a couple other things that I just wanted to share with you. I'm not going to try to do the French voice. I probably have slipped in and out of that as it was. I'm not going to become and be Henri, the Voyageur. I enjoy doing that. I'm going to be Tim Kreps, the retired history teacher. By the way, I do other programs besides the French Voyageur. I do a pilgrim program. I do a Lewis and Clark in their own words with a friend of mine. It's all some of the Indian accoutrements here, but telling the story of the Corps of Discovery. And I do a whatchamacallit thingamajig show where we have guesses on what these things are. Groups and organizations like to guess on those types of things. I have fun doing that. Get in touch with the Historical Society and they'll put you in touch with me if you're interested in those. Leather was very, very useful and strong. People don't understand how strong this leather is. This is a piece of leather that's been sliced down the middle, creating this. This is really strong. Colin, are you feeling strong today?
Yeah.
Come on up here. Face the audience there. Take 2 fingers, or 2 probably, and I'm going to give you a 3 count. 1, 2, 3, and you're done. But I want you to pull as hard as you can for 3, and I want you to try to break this. Okay?
Okay.
If you can break it, that'll be the first on film. But you got to go for it, okay?
Okay.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
Go. 1, 2, 3. Look at him shake. He is trying. Did you try as hard as you could?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's strong.
It is strong. It is strong. So the tools that were used by natives and by pioneers and early people, just because they're old doesn't mean that they weren't useful or helpful or strong to be able to continue being used. Why, even today, we talk about tools from the past. I've read that shards of flint are used in eye surgeries because it's sharper than surgical steel. I used to show my students a magnification of a obsidian blade. This is obsidian and surgical steel magnified to the 10,000th power. It's an old National Geographic magazine, a wonderful magazine on prehistoric tools, but it showed the one of the surgical steel looking like it had craters of the moon. It was just up and down all over the place. And the 10,000th magnification of the obsidian was just straight, not a blemish. So it's still used today, that flint is, I understand. Well, some of you saw this sitting around. I'd like to show you, we said that trade was important for like things like blankets, instead of having to go through all that process to make leather coats or to make deer hide blankets to lay on or to cover up with. This is a wool blanket, and I've made a capote out of this. The capote is a blanket coat. It has no pockets, but it is nice and warm. This particular capote is made from Army Navy surplus from Canada. I got this in Toronto. A lot easier cutting up at that time, a $10 blanket that has a little few stains on it compared to this Whitney 4-point blanket that runs about $150 to $200 today to cut it up and make a blanket coat out of it. Let's have, Linda, you want to come up here and try this on?
That'll feel good after being
After being out in the cold. Can you get your arm in there? There we go. Okay, now she can, yeah, it's a man's coat, but we can roll up these sleeves once here or twice. Here, let's face our camera. Okay, now pull that shut. Okay, let's put where's it? Oh, here it is. Put this on in here. So that's going to keep her warm that way.
It is warm.
Now, how are you going to keep your hands warm without mittens?
Boy, tuck them under.
You could, or you could take your sleeves and put them together like that. Yeah. Your hands are cold. Do that for a while, it'll warm you up. Now you have no top hat on or a cap, so what we can do is pull up the hood here. She becomes like Little Red Riding Hood. But you notice these notches here. Keep looking straight ahead. And those notches fit right under her chin. And this is a built-in scarf.
Oh my gosh.
These tails on the back of the hood become... Now, I'll give you the count of 10 and I'll bet you want to take that
That is warm.
pretty quickly. But that typical way to keep warm, wool will shed water for a while, and even if it does get wet, wool will have the capacity to keep you warm even though it gets wet. That's why my wool pants here, they might get wet as a voyageur, but because in a canoe, because they're wool, I'm going to stay warm even though they might get wet. And that's why I wear the gaiters here. Wool, when it gets wet, gets very heavy. If I had just my regular pucker toe moccasins on, the weight of this wool without gaiters on, could actually drop my drawers. So you wouldn't want that to happen. Okay, you can go back and take that off there. Did you all have any other questions that maybe some of those folks might be thinking of and hoping that you would ask in their stead? Did anybody have any other questions or need more explanation on any of the things that we talked about here?
What foot do you have hanging there in that there?
This is a snapping turtle, and many times when I put my courier up in a presentation, I have a large snapping turtle shell that I hang from the top of it so it can be seen. And that's to help remind folks that I am a friend of Chief Michikennequa, known probably by most people as Chief Little Turtle, Chief of the Miami Indians. And so in my presentations, this is a calling card. You know, come to me, I can make good trades, type of thing.
So it's a little signal.
This necklace that's tucked around it is cedar beads, and the tradition for cedar is that it makes your voice sound melodious and good orator. And so many natives would have beads of cedar, especially if they were in charge of talking to groups, or a chief or a medicine man or something like that would wear cedar. That's tucked around there. This little, I have a lot of sharp tools around all the time, but this little knife here is really handy. You just take it off of here. That's an antler. Folds back up and goes back down there. You can just hang there because you don't have pockets. You have pouches. You have, you know, those types of things. There's something that I've been carrying with me here. Any idea what this is?
Looks like a,
Well, if I begin to open it up, you might be able to see if my... Without revealing everything that's in there, does that give you any more hints? You see this groove here? What might go around that?
Is it for spooling thread?
Right on you're getting there, real close. It's not thread, it's fishing line.
Ah,
Hooks back then, you had to tie them in such a way they had this flare out and not an eye. So you had to tie I would use a clove hitch on that. It would hold and be able to keep my hook on there. And so that if you're wondering, well, what did the natives use? This, I don't know how close I can get there, but that is a little hook made out of flint. And it does have a little indentation on the top of it so that you can tie the line on there. This is an early bobber. So you run the line through and be able to have your line, your hook down here, your bobber up here.
So that's your tackle box.
That's my tackle box. By the way, that's made from a design that goes way back in history. That was George Washington's early tackle box. Not that one, but you get the idea. Did anybody else have any other wonderments or questions?
would the Voyageur make most of these things himself?
Mostly trade for them. Would not, this blousey shirt that I have on is a calico shirt. This would be traded for. A lot of people don't realize that calico, they think that it's the small little print, type of thing. Calico is named calico because the material comes from Calcutta. So any material from Calcutta was called calico cloth. Stripes, patterns like this, plain calico shirt. This one was made the old, what we call the old-timey way. You can actually see some overlap of some block. It was block hand block printed and made for me by a friend that makes all these kind of shirts. Colin, you had a question?
Oh yeah, I was wondering what your armband is for.
Armband, well, here's some decorative, things hanging from it and all. Two of them here, these two here, armbands. Blousy shirts, they get in the way. And some shirts are so blousy, my brother had one that was just way down into here, way too blousy for me. But this is the reason, you bring in the blousy parts and then hold it up here so that you still have your shirt, but not have this extra blousy stuff in the way.
I see.
And it showed you're a good trader. I mean, to have the nose ring, the ear cuff, the gorget, anything that I have that shows trade silver says, well, he can make good trades. He's a wealthy trader. He can make good trades. Any others? Well, folks, thanks so much for joining us today. We look forward to being able to go back in person and have other presentations, and maybe down around the horn, we'll be back with another one of my presentations here. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.